White supremacy is a runaway train, and the gaslighting that white people continue to do should never happen. It should never happen, nor should it ever be allowed to happen. So, earlier today, somebody sent me a video of Tim Pool's cast where he had the police officer, the one that got shot in the leg when he kicked in the door of Breonna Taylor, and Kenneth Walker fired and shot him in the leg, and then there was an exchange of gunfire, and then Breonna Taylor was tragically killed. So I watched the clip. Now, granted, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt because there's a lot of him covering his ass, in the video. That's to be expected. And there's a number of things that he said that I'm glad that he said. But again, I still put it underneath him covering his ass. But in the process of covering his ass, he actually exposed white supremacy for what it is. Now, I'm going to combine that video with another topic, another video, which is from Sydney Watson, not Sydney Watkins. Sydney Watson. She's that white woman from Australia. She's been on Tim Pool's podcast a couple of times. But she's basically a largely conservative white woman, and she's tolerable in my book, even though sometimes she gets on some racial stupid shit. But as it pertains to a lot of the gender stuff, I agree with her. But sometimes when she gets into the racial stuff, she's just off. But she has a video, and the video is titled "Math is Racist" or something like that. And she's talking about the whole concept of changing the curriculum so that minorities can achieve, right? And, obviously her base on this subject is going to be the white people who feel, oh, it's reverse racism and it's okay to be white, and, all that, white victimhood crap that they're trying to do now, right? Ignoring the context of the past. But anyway, I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna connect the two. So back to the first video with Tim Pool, right? So the cop, he goes through and explains the whole situation with Breonna Taylor, and it's as I said. That's why somebody sent it to me, because they were like, "Yo, this goes back to exactly what you said in your video." Yeah, because I looked at the documents. I looked at the search warrant. They didn't pull Breonna Taylor out of a hat, and they had the tape of Jamarcus Glover up there basically saying in so many words that Breonna Taylor's holding the money. So Breonna Taylor got in the mix of things because she was dating Jamarcus Glover, who was the drug dealer who was on Elliott Avenue that was the one that they were trying to bust. But they knew at the time he wasn't at that location, so they figured he was over Breonna's, not knowing that Breonna's Taylor had, moved on. Now she was messing with Kenneth Walker. Now, in this video, the police officer says that when, because Kenneth Walker was arrested and he was in jail for about a month after he shot the police officer, right? Even though he shouldn't have been in jail at all, because, and Tim Pool acknowledges this, but, you kick in somebody's door, late at night, most people are going to defend themselves. They're not going to think it's police, and then especially in this area, there's been Kenneth Walker seemingly was a part of, the narcotics economy trade. He was selling drugs himself based on his text messages. They were talking about going to hit a lick and basically robbing other drug dealers for X amount of dollars. I think they said it was like $20K, and so that's the thing. You go up to the house, you bang on the door, you say it's the police, they open the door, and then you run in there ski masked up and you take whatever. Okay, so he's thinking that's what's happening to him over at Breonna Taylor's. Now, all of this would be tremendously difficult to prove about what he thought, who he thought it was, and what was his mindset and whatnot. But the point is that, Kenneth Walker, it was basically, and I know a few of them, a drug dealer who has not been caught, therefore not charged with a felony, therefore able to legally possess a firearm. There's a number of people who are like that, who are, running around, and they think that it's like, damn, you sell drugs? Yeah. But you got a legal CCW. Yeah, I haven't gotten caught yet. So until I get caught, I'm not going to lose my license with the CCW. And then on top of that, you know what the crazy thing is? When they have a legal CCW, and even though they're selling drugs, a lot of police officers assume that, they're not involved in the narcotics trade, because if they were, you would have been caught by now and you wouldn't have a legal CCW. So the legal CCW kind of acts as a shield to cops further investigating into your criminal activity because you don't have a criminal background, right? So anyway, that's just my 2 cents to it. Because I just have to point out that Kenneth Walker had a legal CCW permit. Now, the officer in the video said that there were a bunch of text messages. That's something that could easily be, verified or not. I'm not going to get into, the cop is lying and this, that, and the third. I don't think that he lie about a statement that is so easily verifiable. Like, okay, show us the text messages, plain and simple. Anyway, or the transcripts or whatever it is, just like they did with the Jamarcus Glover, calling Breonna Taylor from prison, or calling him from jail, or not calling her, but talking about her to somebody else while he was in prison. Like, I don't know why, again, I just keep thinking of that scene in Belly where DMX was like, I told Knowledge not to call the spot. You know what I'm saying? Or whoever it was. I think it was Knowledge who was the one out in Oklahoma. But anyway, I told him not to call the spot. Or no, it wasn't Knowledge. I take that back. It was his girl, Keisha. Keisha called the spot when she got locked up, when she was out there. And I think Method Man, what happened? I forgot. Why did she get raided? Who called the spot? Was it Knowledge? I forget. Anyway, I'm getting my movies all mixed up. I forget how it was, but anyway, the cops came to the house and all that stuff, and he was like, "Yeah, she don't even talk like that." I got to go back and watch Belly again. But anyway, moving on for the subject. Okay, so this is the thing, right? The part in there that the Tim Pool podcast, and Tim Pool, he's a little bitch ass at times. He's another one, like all these white conservatives, they love to come on, from Candace Owens to Ben Shapiro to Tim Pool. They love to come on and try and sit there and try to act like white supremacy is not a thing. And it's just some made up, fabricated shit. And that white people in positions of power, don't do things that conspire against black people as a racial group. Now people argue, it's just a byproduct of this and that, and people in power and yada, yada, yada. And it's not necessarily that black people are targeted, but they just end up being, because of the historical context and where black people historically have been, it's just a byproduct of white people operating in ways to, try to gain power themselves, but it's not specifically about race, right? I've heard this argument a million times before. From the black perspective, I don't care how you want to dice it. If a bunch of white people are in a room conspiring, to do things that are against your collective best interests as black people, that is white supremacy. I don't care how you want to dice it up. So anyway, the cop goes up there, and like I said, I'm going to put these links in the description box. So definitely check out the links if you want full context, in listening to this video. So you can listen to it before or after. It's your choice. So in the clip, the cop basically talks, because Tim Pool, and I'll give him a little bit of credit, he's like, what was the whole thing with the gentrification? And so basically the township, and this is what they do. And see, the cop, again, more of him covering his ass. Now that he's been kicked out of the police department and everything, and he wants to sell his book and all this other stuff, now, as a white police officer, he wants to be as honest as he can be and tell the truth about what's going on, because basically he's been excommunicated, right? So the deal is, they go in there, they get the cops. This goes back to what I talked about when I talk about, the policies and the things that were put in place to basically undermine the black community, the redlining, the block busting, the urban renewal, the eminent domain, right? So they want to call this revitalization, right? White people always put some flowery words on some fucked up shit, okay? So revitalization of that area where Elliott Avenue and all that was, right? Which the cop comes in and basically says, yeah, they get us to go in there, do the dirty work. We go in there and, going back to the whole eminent domain, if you go on Wikipedia and you look up the definition of eminent domain is basically where the state comes in and they buy up, or the township or whatever, they come in and they buy up area that they want by labeling it as blighted. Well, how do I get an area to be labeled as blighted, right? I got to have high arrest, high charges in that area. In other words, I'm over policing that area, right? Now, one of the things that the cop acknowledges, and I don't think any cop out here can work, if they've been working in any particular area for a year, the black community for a year. Because this cop, he basically laid it out. But again, I don't really feel like there was true compassion in there. I felt like, I can be honest about it now because I'm excommunicado and I'm also going to cover my ass, so the black community doesn't hate me. But he basically pointed out what we've been saying. There are no opportunities in these areas. He said it was like a third world country after dark. And, it's just that it's the narco economy, and that's how people are making a living. And so there's just no opportunities, and what we need to be. And he brought up welfare and talked about, the way you get these people off of welfare is you got to taper them off. But the main thing is he acknowledged that you need to bring in some economic opportunities into that area, which is exactly what's not being done. And first off, they never, whenever they gentrify, they never raise the income of the people who are living in those areas. We had the same discussion when we talked about, fixing the black community and educated black people moving into these areas. And to my dismay, a lot of the people had the attitude like, I'm not paying anybody, livable wages. If I'm coming in there to make money, I'm going to pay, $10 an hour. I'm like, you're not changing anybody's condition off of $10 an hour. You're not changing anybody's condition, in terms of keeping families intact if you don't have black men in this environment that are gainfully employed. I don't care how you want to dice it up. Right. So the white folks, they come in and they do the same thing. We're not creating economic opportunities. The goal and the purpose here is to displace these people, get them the fuck out, move them out, right? Label it a blighted area, come in with eminent domain, buy the properties up for pennies on the dollar, which again, this is basically theft. Okay, they go in there, label it blighted. The cops are here, they're raiding this, they're raiding that. Again, that whole, what do you want to call it? That the whole law enforcement, what do you call that shit? The possession shit. What's it called? They just try to reinforce a law in New Jersey with that bullshit. That whole, if what you're doing is tied to your illegal activity, the police department gets to come in there and claim it, including the property, including vehicles, and whatever money they find, and basically they get to keep the shit. So same thing. Oh, this is a trap house. So therefore, eminent domain it, blight it, all that stuff. We're taking it, right? Then they go and they give it to a white land developer. And then the white land developer goes and then transforms that community into what is always typically the gayborhood, which will have a bunch of bohemians and hipsters and gay people running around, and then eventually, and students, and eventually that place will be, those people will be displaced. And then the white heteronormative cisgendered patriarchal white male with his nuclear white family, who has a substantially high income, then they move in later. But the first wave is always, and you saw this in that documentary Flag Wars, the first wave of gentrifying an area is to get the gays to go in there, the students, the hipsters, the bohemians, the childless people. You get them to go in, because white wealthy men are not going to move in there first, with their families and their children. Oh no, 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 no. Until all of the niggers are gone, we are going to have the less desirable white folks go in there first as the buffer. Okay, and then they will phase out the black people, and then we will phase them out. That's how gentrification works. Okay, then at the end, that's when you'll see white women walking around with their little chihuahuas in their purse and poodles and all that other dumb shit, and jogging with their headphones on and shit like that, right? That's when you see all that stuff, but that doesn't come until later. So that's basically what they were trying to do to this area, and the same thing applies to the town it was like the next town over that the cops said that they did the same thing too. Okay, so they're just displacing black people, right? It's amazing, right? It's like you deny black people access to the Federal Housing Act. Black men that came back from World War II, they weren't allowed to be a part of Levittown. They weren't allowed to be a part of that aspect of generational wealth, which goes through the transfer of wealth through the equity in homes. Right, or the ability to take out money or leverage your home, take out a loan, take it out a loan leveraged against your home so that you can start a small business and things like that. Black people were never able to be a part of that, right? So this is where, again, you get into why, black people, black Americans, ADOS, foundational black Americans, should be entitled to not just reparations for slavery, but reparations for slavery and everything that happened underneath the system of Jim Crow, which redlining and block busting and eminent domain and urban renewal were a part of. And I mean, this cop, and this is why I say screw Tim Pool and many of these other white folks that like to come up here and deny white supremacy on a daily basis because they want to cater to the little, weak-minded, desperately needing critical race theory white folks out here that don't know shit from piss about history. Right? They think that, it's just victim blaming and victimology and black people need to get out of this victim mindset. But yet this white cop, and you can go and listen to the Tim Pool cast yourself. He literally sat up there and detailed exactly how white supremacy works. They had meetings every week about how they were going to go in there and displace these black people. Get the cops to go in there, harass, pull people over, hit them with drug charges, all this shit. Not that they actually care about making that a safe and secure environment for even black people. No, it's to get them out of there, to use the blight card, to use the eminent domain card so that they can go in there and gentrify the area and give it to white land developers. And, you can further look into this because I think Professor Black Truth, he did a video. He covered this a long time ago. He covered this a while ago. But this white cop actually sat up there and he said the shit, laid it the fuck out. Right. And so how does that tie to Sydney Watson's video? Well, Sydney Watson, she just did a video about basically pushing black students through the educational system so that we can have a more fair and equitable world in terms of education and job opportunities. And basically it doesn't work. And what I got to say to her about that is fuck her on that shit. And any of these other white people that love to come through, like, in other words, because I know my grandfather was a part of it, where you have black people that it's like, in the past, right, black people were denied before Brown versus Board of Education. We were not allowed to go to white institutions even when we qualified. And now what you have is policies mainly coming from liberals that are trying to resolve that issue, not on the front end, but on the back end. The front end would go back to what the cop was talking about there needing to be economic opportunities for these people so that they don't fall into the trap of diving into the narco economy, which is what we've been saying. Gainful employment for young black men needs job training and skill training, and the economic opportunities have to be there. But the system of white supremacy doesn't want to do that. They don't want to deal with it from that end. Oh, that means injecting resources into the black community. Yes, and they're not going to do that. And so this is where you get the other white people that come into the comment section. They're foaming at the goddamn mouth. And they run around the internet, run around YouTube with confirmation bias about, oh, see, the niggers, the black people, they're just like that. They're just like that. They're just like that. Oh, look at this video of black people criminals. Oh, look at this smash and grab, and they're running into Walmarts and stores and stealing this and stealing that. And see, and these animals, and that's why we should have kept them in chains, and blah, 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 you know, all that crap. Right? They run off with that because, see, what white conservatives love to do is white conservatives love to start at the end of the movie. They love to again, no context. We don't want to know about history and all the things that led up to this. No, it's just like this, and they're just like that, and that's just how they are. And see, what they need to do is, again, fall in line and behave and follow our rules and regulations and accept their lot in life, right? And that's what they need to do. And if they don't do that, see, there's personal responsibility, this, that, and the third, right? That's all they're going to say. Even though they have these policies that they're putting in place, stealing wealth from black people through, you know, I mean, think about it. These properties already, most likely, especially due to the racism of realtors, don't cost shit. These properties that these black people are living in, already the house is probably not worth anything. But even instead of even paying black people that, what they want is they literally want the properties for free. And how do they get the properties for free? Or as he said, for like $1, you know, just like how in Detroit, you know, you could go a couple years ago and buy houses for like $1. You know what I'm saying? They go in there and they get the police to go rough them up, you know, get the numbers so that we can get federal funding and things like that for, oh, it's a blighted area. We need more resources for cops and everything. So even the police are incentivized to go in there and start fucking with and roughing up black people. And then, you know, once they do that, then again, they get the properties for next to nothing. You see, why pay Miss Jackson $30,000 for her shitty ass dilapidated home when we can go in there and we can basically, you know, arrest her son? Oh, he sold drugs, this, that, and the third, and then basically label the area blighted and force them out of that area. And then we can get the properties for next to nothing, give it to the land developer. There's a whole bunch of kickbacks going to the mayor, kickbacks going to city council, kickbacks going to all these white people that got their hands in the pot at the expense of black people. Then again, you get the white people that come online foaming at the mouth. You know, it's like you create this situation and then you sit there and you blame the people that are in that situation that you created. And so now you end up with a situation where, not like I said before, you have people who are not only unemployed, but they're unemployable. They're unemployable, not just unemployed, unemployable. Because now, again, with the narco economy, you know, even if you displace these people, you have no foundation of stability to even do what Sidney Watson was talking about in terms of like the educational system. You know, and we need, like, in other words, having the children value in education, having, you know, this sort of the support that you would need, you know, when it comes to education, like going to college and things like that, it takes the support. You know, I jumped on Dr. T. Hassan Johnson about this, you know, when he made the video, you know, trying to make black men feel better and say, oh, your worth is not tied to how much money you make. But then he made a video where he actually sat up there and started talking about the struggles that black men have when it comes to going to college, and how many black students, I don't know if it was black students or black men specifically, end up dropping out, you know, within their first year, not only because they're underprepared, which goes back to what Sidney Watson was saying, but also because they don't have the financial support coming from the family. You see, so all of this stuff, it just comes full circle. So here you have them busting up a black community, right, that's already been oppressed, already is only relying on the narco economy to sustain itself because there are no economic opportunities. So they go in there, the little bit that they do have, right? At first it was denying black people access to loans, and no, you can't move into a white Levittown or any predominantly white community. We're not going to give you the loans. You got Fannie Mae and all that. We're not going to give you the loans, right? Then black people finally are able to buy something and own and have something. And then, again, even with the economic opportunities not being there, here comes, the city council, the white city council, white township going, oh, well, we don't like that area down there where the niggas stay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in there and we're going to bust it up. And then we're going to sell it to a white land owner so that we can create this neighborhood of shopping centers and cafes and all this other bullshit. Right. Meanwhile, those black people get displaced. And then they'll move to another particular area and there'll be a majority black people there. They might own a little bit there. And then here comes the white people again. Oh, blighted area. Oh, let's go in there and create more land development because our area has gotten overcrowded. So we're just going to keep displacing black people and keep expanding outward and outward and outward and urban sprawl. And you know how that goes. Right. But the thing with the Sydney Watson and the point that, irritates me that she was making or the context that she just completely ignored, is the fact that it's like, okay, well, Sydney, I get the fact that, yes, and even I will acknowledge this. I've seen this myself where a child is failing. I mean, they're literally failing everything. And then they will just simply move the child forward. And this happens in the school district of Philadelphia. This even happens at the charter schools. They just, move them forward, just gloss over the standardized test. We got to get them to graduate because, racism, right? And it is fucked up. But by the same token, it's fucked up on the other end where, again, just like the cop said, it's like it's like you don't want to deal with the problem on the front end. And then when somebody tries to deal with the problem on the back end, you complain about dealing with the problem on the back end. So they're trying to get more black people into college and everything. You're like, oh, well, see, affirmative action, reverse racism. See, they can't make the cut because they don't have the skill set. And black kids in the 12th grade function at the level that white kids in the 8th grade function at. And so they're never going to catch up. Okay, well, sounds to me what we would need is an injection of resources to stabilize these homes and stabilize the community and create economic opportunities and gainful employment for the men in the community so that their children are growing up in a stable environment. They can make the connection between education and the lifestyle that they're living, and so that they look away from the narco economy. But no, nobody wants to deal with it from that end. They again, it's like liberals go out here and they're trying to put a bandage on a hemorrhaging wound. And so what you end up with in the grand scheme of things, all you end up with is black people as a permanent underclass and these problems persisting, the narco economy persisting, the violence and the crime persisting, all of this continuing to persist. And I was going to do a video on, speaking about Breonna Taylor and her dealing with the D-boy. And, I got into it with sisters about that and, talking about, oh, she deserved to die. That nobody said that she deserved to die. But again, she put herself in a high risk situation by dealing with D-boys. Again, either something happen like what happened. The cops come there and, you in the midst of shit, or here comes the ops. One or the other. But as a sister wrote an article, I got to find the article and I was going to talk about it, but talking about how, I talked about the rise of African Americans purchasing firearms and also the rise of black women purchasing firearms. But at the same time, we've also had a rise in criminal activity in the black community due to this pandemic and everything else. And I'm not going to say all of it is tied, to black women. But one of the things that she pointed to, and you're like, well, how is it tied to black women at all? Well, it's tied to black women. Again, going back to this article, what this woman was talking about, it's tied to black women because you have black women, and I've made this point before, making straw purchases for their Ray Ray and Pookie black men's that are engaged in criminal activity. Just like with Breonna Taylor going out here and holding Jamarcus Glover's money. You see, but then, again, the divestors and the swirlers and all these other man-hating black women, they jump online and then talk about how, black women are just victims and all this, and they don't participate and engage in any of this shit. How did your boyfriend with a felony get a gun if you didn't purchase it for him? Because the laws are way lax, especially when you get down into like the deep South and Georgia and Tennessee and Mississippi and all these other places and whatnot. You mean they buy guns like people go to Foot Locker and buy Jordans. They just walk in there. Oh, I want this. Oh, I want that. You know what I mean? And they'll sit there. The boyfriend will say, hey, I want this. She'll go. She got a clean record. She goes in there, buys it because, I love him. I love him. Right? He dicking her down. So she's content, or he's the baby daddy. He's like, yeah, girl, I need you to do this. I need you to do that for me. You love me, right? Right? So he does all that and she goes off and does it. Now, obviously it's stupid and irresponsible on her part, right? And then other, women, that have, more mental capacity than her, they'll say, oh, well, see, she's a victim to the male manipulation and, all this other crap. But the other black women will never hold her accountable for what she did, even though that gun was used to kill another black woman's son in the black community, right? So while Keisha is going out there and buying Jamal a gun that he later uses to kill another black woman's son, it's going to be, oh, let's just talk about black male and black male violence, and these black men are out here killing each other, which, yes, that is 50% of the problem. But the other aspect of the problem are the women who go out here and they buy these firearms illegally, buy them legally, but then transferring them illegally to their boyfriends who have felonies or criminal backgrounds who are not able to purchase a firearm themselves. You see, people talking about these polymer 80s and whatnot. Whose credit card is that shit being purchased on? Whose credit card is that being purchased? I know some credit cards are stolen, but I'm saying whose credit card is that being purchased on? You see, I'm not saying it's always the woman, but again, we got a community full of single mothers, and yet we got 14 and 15-year-old boys somehow able to go on these websites and buy the polymer 80, kits where you shave off parts of the lower and then assemble it. Right, because the blower is the only part that's that you actually have to that goes on the 4473 when you purchase a gun, and then they go and they take that gun and then you see all the carjackings and everything else like that. I guarantee you, if we could track all those gun purchases back to a credit card, you're going to see more black female names on those credit cards than black male names on those credit cards. Because remember, deadbeat dad, the daddies aren't there. So there are a lot of aspects of the responsibility that do fall on a lot of these black mothers and black girlfriends that nobody wants to talk about. So I just have to say that because, going back to this whole, Breonna Taylor is the ultimate victim. Again, I said the same thing a long time ago. I'm like, they didn't pull her name out of a hat. She was dating Marcus Glover. The cops were on to Marcus Glover. And that's why, they went to her apartment. Y'all want to sit there and ignore that fact. No, they pulled her name out of a hat. They were at the wrong location and they killed a black woman because racism. You see? The bottom line, is just like, it's like all parties were wrong engaged in this. But again, I'm always going to look at it from the standpoint that, we live in this system, this racist system of white supremacy where white people have the power to create the situation and define things as such. And here you have a situation where, damn near as always, black people are put into this desperate situation of poverty where they go out there and they engage in the narco economy because there are no opportunities around. And again, I'm not just saying that. The white police officer who got shot in the leg is saying that right there on Tim Pool's podcast. So it's like the whole thing it all ties back to the system of white supremacy. And what white people, what they do, because they continuously do not want to deal with the problem on the front end, which are economic opportunities for black men so that they can provide for their patriarchal families and take care of their homes and discipline and create and facilitate discipline within their home. They don't want to deal with it on that. So then here comes the liberals saying, well, this is racist. We acknowledge that, but even we don't want to inject resources directly into the black community. So we're going to put a bandage on a hemorrhaging wound. And then you get the white conservatives. They're foaming at the mouth because they're even mad about the bandage on the hemorrhaging wound. You know, and then it's what makes it even so screwed up is it's like they set you up for failure. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like, you know, when black people, you know, wanted to get into these universities and had the scores and everything to get in these universities, they denied them access to these universities. Now, where you have black people who they probably won't make it through the first semester, they're like, come on into these predominantly white universities that we already know that you're not going to make it after the first. Come on in, right? I mean, it's so fucked up. The same thing with the felony bullshit. It's like, oh yeah, dish out. We got to hand out felonies all over the place. That way we can legally discriminate black people with gusto, because hey, he's a felon. Hey, it's not because he's black, it's because he's a felon. You know, that we can legally discriminate against him. Same thing with the liberals. Oh, let's legalize marijuana. And black people are out here like, yeah, we need to decriminalize marijuana, right? So they go out there and they go, oh, we're going to legalize and decriminalize it. And next thing you know, backdoor gun control. Oh, because we don't want niggas with guns. So yeah, smoke all the weed that you want. Right now, they threw up this bill to legalize it or decriminalize it federally, right? But the same thing we said about the dispensaries. Black people been selling weed, but now, oh, white people, oh shit, we can make money off of this. Okay, yeah, we're gonna make the license to open up a dispensary $200,000. Well, who's able to get the $200,000 loan? To open up a dispensary or whatever not the loan, excuse me, the fee, whatever the fees are, so that you can even enter yourself into the lottery to be able to open up a marijuana dispensary. It ain't black folks. You see, I mean, the whole bottom line, the whole game is rigged, and it's a runaway train. White supremacy on the condition and state of black people in America is a runaway train. It's like, I mean, you want to talk about black people being a permanent underclass. I mean, this is it right here. I mean, nobody is correcting the problem. It's not going to be corrected. And when white people, all they do is gaslight. They sit there and they feign like, oh, we're trying to fix this and we're trying to end racism. But, black people, they're just out here and they're just so lazy and they just don't want to do. But meanwhile, at the same time, they're doing all the shit that cop laid out on Tim Pool's podcast. They're still doing that shit like that. But then want to run around and talk about being personally responsible. How the hell are you supposed to be personally responsible in a situation where you got white city council and the mayor and everybody else literally making deals behind your back with the banks and the freaking land developers and whatnot and the police officers to get your black ass out of there? You sitting there trying to keep your nose clean, doing everything on the up and straight and narrow and everything, and they're doing this shit in the background. And then these white conservatives have the audacity to get online and sit there and talk about, well, just say personal responsibility. Maybe if you were being more personally responsible, then you'd be in a better place. We don't owe you for slavery or Jim Crow or redlining or blockbusting or urban renewal. You know what I'm saying? Or dumping drugs in the black community via, thank you, the CIA with Iran-Contra. We don't owe you anything. Like I said, this is why critical race theory is desperately needed. Whether you want to call it critical race theory or not, let's just call it what it is. History. The history of white supremacy. That is what critical race theory is. The history of COINTELPRO. The history of it. The history of purging of black communities. Anytime black people go out here and again, what did that guy say on what that guy is? He's one of the commentators on CNN. I don't particularly care for him a lot, but he said, what is it? It's black progress, white rage. I think it was like black progress or white anger. And that's just the facts. It's like as soon as black people even remotely try to get themselves together, it's like white people just, they start freaking out. They start acting like, it's reverse racism. They start acting like they're losing something. Like as though, the system literally being one-sided and beneficial to them is some fabricated, made up shit. All you gotta do is just look at housing in this country. Just look at housing. And that was specifically designed with the Federal Housing Act to benefit white people. You can look at the highways in this country, 1954 Highway Commission Act. You know what I'm saying? I just posted a video the other day about Tampa and how they literally ran I-4 directly through the downtown, the center of a black community. Well, of course, we don't want that highway driving through a white community where white people would be displaced. They tried that shit in Philadelphia, in Chinatown, where the Vine Street Expressway is. And if you turn right there on, I believe it's 10th and Vine, where the Confucius statue is, there's a mural that the Chinese put there, and they got the guy and he's wringing out the towel, and it makes like a river, and it's basically showing the timeline that we came from China, and we had these basic crummy ass jobs, and when you get all the way to the bottom of the river, there's a bunch of Chinese people there with picket signs standing in front of a bulldozer. That was when the Asian community in Chinatown, basically fought to make sure that because they tried it. The white people tried it. They were like, we'll just run the Vine Street Expressway directly through Chinatown. And the Chinese people organized and they said no. Which for the Chinese people, obviously it's easier for them to do it because they come here with their language, their culture, their orientation, all that stuff was stripped from black people. But black people have not been able to hold their ground against the system of white supremacy. We've just been unable to do it. They literally just come in there and just gentrify and start knocking shit down, and then we get displaced, and then every generation basically ends up having to start at zero. Then you throw in white Jesus and Christianity and all the magical bullshit and all that Steve Harvey, T.D. Jakes nonsense. Well, I'm not leaving my kids anything because being poor and brings you close to Jesus, because like Jesus, they will be pious, and being poor and dusty and not having generational wealth like the Rothschilds, it builds character. And then when the children are either furthermore subject to the system of white supremacy, or the children are, what do you want to call it? Struggle more, or are angry, or go out here and get it by any means necessary and spit in their elders' faces. And black elders running around, you don't respect your elders, these black youth, what's wrong with them? And you wonder why? It's like the system of white supremacy. It's evil. It does fucked up shit. There is no denying it. But by the same token, there's many missteps that black people have made in terms of countering white supremacy. I don't give white supremacy a pass about, what the hell they do. See, white people always want to do some fucked up shit as a collective. And then label themselves the benevolent force in the universe. It's the irony of it is just crazy. The irony of it is crazy. They get so upset. Their feathers get ruffled when they get called out on their shit. It's like they want to be able to go in there, do some fucked up shit that totally is detrimental to another group of people, and then they want you to praise them and worship them and tell them how great they are, and then they just like try to like erase everything that they did out of their history books. They just try to erase all the fucked up shit that they did. Oh no, we don't want to discuss that. Oh no, that didn't happen. Oh yeah. And then they dump it on their descendants, their grandkids, and sit around and they feel bad. They're like, no, see, all of this is designed to make me feel bad as a white person. No, it's not. No, this is what your ancestors did. This is what they did. You see, I noticed that about white people. They'll sit there and, like I told Reindeer years ago, they'll sit there and they always want to talk about, all the they'll grab on all the positives that Europeans have contributed to the world, right? But then they want none of the negatives. They want to sit there and, why are you blaming all white people for what was done in the past throughout time? But yet a white person can sit there and they'll be like, they'll start naming ethnic groups that they're not. They'll be Irish and be bragging about, the awesomeness of Italian supercars and shit like that. Or they'll be, French and talk about, the German chemist and all that other shit. But then as soon as you get into, the negative shit, now all of a sudden they want to distance themselves from what other white people. We'll see. That was the Germans. The Germans in the Third Reich. That was the Germans. That wasn't us. We're British. You know what I mean? Or like what Reindeer did. We had nothing to do with American slavery. We're Afrikaners. We're Boers. All that shit. But then when you get over to the positives, he tried to claim every American invention that there was. What do you mean? We gave Africans planes and locomotives and the television and we gave them computers and we gave them this. I'm like, everything that you name, we gave them electricity. I'm like, all these inventions that you're naming are American inventions. But again, when you get to slavery, oh no, we ain't got nothing to do with that. But when it comes to they will anything that's positive, they will make it the whitest, most includes every white person from every white nation in Europe. You know what I mean? I'm like, what does a white chick from Bulgaria have to do with the first computer? You know what I'm saying? And they'll claim it. But then as soon as you get to the negatives, I ain't got nothing to do with that. My people are from Bulgaria. Like, it's just it's the most nonsensical shit in the world. But this is what they do. It's a sickness. White supremacy is a sickness. It is a sickness, but I agree with Nellie Fuller. It is the strongest religion in the world. It is the strongest religion. It's a pathology. It's pathological. It's amazing. Just the way that they get triggered. You know what I mean? And black people are literally not saying anything but the truth. Not saying anything other than what they do. And that is why one of the things I get away from Christianity. I'm like, and these are the motherfuckers you all got Christianity from. These are the motherfuckers where you get your religious orientation about God and righteousness and justice. These are the people that you got that shit from, because the Bible is written in freaking English. It's not written in Mende or Yoruba or Igbo. It's written in English. This is where you get your spiritual orientation from. I'm like, shit is insane. And you all think that by throwing up, to me, it's just too poisoned. It's too contaminated. You think throwing up their idea of justice is somehow going to help you when they don't even view you as being human. They view you as something else, being other. This is the system of white supremacy. And when you point it out, when you literally hold the mirror up to them, they freak the fuck out. Literally freak out. Anyway, that's all I got to say. That's my video. SWP out.